I don't know.
Okay, so it's recording.
I'll do that before I start. I'll say this and so on. Thanks a lot. Yes, sure. If you could find my emails, if you could ask Rabbi on if you got a minute.
Yeah, sure. Just show someone how to turn it off when you're done. So you can record for hours and hours and hours.
Sure, definitely. Will you come down here and get it later?
Yeah. Actually take it off the hold here, and then just press stop. Yeah, that's it.
David Morris apologizes. David Morris has a Irua in Haifa.
He's in Haifa. Yeah, Moshe Kruger told me he's gone shopping.
Behatzlocha. 7 days.
Good. Okay, thanks a lot, Sean. I really appreciate your help. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
He stayed out there to my house. He's a selfie. I'm not doing a great deal, but there's a few things I needed to do with my sforim. It's very helpful. Okay. So we're holding by yeah, there we are. So today is oil Lvov Nissan Tov Shin Samates Shiran Hemshech Tov Hashem Ayin Beis Chelik Aleph Dibur HaMaschil Hashem Oma HaMachas Ani Parsha Vayer Tov Reish Ayin Daled Omer Tov Nun Daled. So we're holding it by the musik that Chokm Stimor, that the Shem Stimor is indicated the Koyach HaStimos HaAtzmi, through which Pnimius Atik Mamish it becomes Ayin Shel Chochma. And we saw that the Lashon of the Zohar Kodesh to the Ayin from Asisa Pele, and on that the Zohar Kodesh Taiche Kisui Lavusha de Nahoira I Datika. And we saw that normally a Lavush and a Kisui is the Taiche the Koyach Tachtoin is Machasu Mailim of the Koyach Eliyah. That means to say that V'derech Ilava Olo V'oid Shlapshis HaKoyches V'Asfiras Ebezeh is that there's a certain Yerida and the Achiza in the Kli of the Tachtoin, that becomes like a Helem, like the Pshitas or the Teich of Adin, and it was in the Koyach HaEliyah. However, though, we touch here that Chochmah becomes, particularly Chochmah Stimor, becomes a Kisuya Nahoira Da'atiko is Eino Boivim Klazeh. Ella, we saw that the Etzem Inyan of Tainuk, Atzmi, what that is Atiko, yeah, that becomes and is Nase the Inyan Achokma. In other words, that it's a Hilem Atzmi, that the Etzem itself literally changes its form of his galas. Yeah, and Ubezehu Misalem B'mesha Nase B'chinas Achokma. In other words, not that there's a Dova Hamayli al Derech Harogil, nor that the Etzem Inyan of the Mokir Ha'achmi itself changes its oifen of what you might call a state, and it becomes a Dova which is Eino Mahus Mamish from the Atzmi, but it's impossible to say that it's another Mahus, and it's Misalim, the Etzem is Misalim Toich Atzmi. And Mamela Moven, the Beginnes Akisui, Einze Raksha Machase Umailim. It's about 6 lines down from the top. Alaize Koyach Shalamailim Imenu. Kumoi Kol Koyach Tachtoin. Shemal Bishla Koyach Elyain Umali Molov, Kibil over all over Kahai Gardner. Shahin Koyach Mivdolim Zemise. ובזה שמלביש עיסי, הוא מעלימו, although the koyach tachton is malbish, the koyach ha'elyon, and that causes a helem. The helem הזה ain't a helem atzmi, the hainu loima. What do we mean by saying helem atzmi? The hainu loima שהkoyach ha'elyon bo b'shinui ha'muhus, ונעשה koyach ha'tachton, כי אם מה שמסלביש בו. וממילא אין זה עצמוס koyach ha'elyon, כי אם ha'orme, remember, like every olul is only ha'orah from the ila, and even though there's a slapshus from the ila in the olul, it's only b'derech ha'orah mi ha'ila. So v'keinu b'rov vinyone ha'slapshus. Ki im b'shirnei amus v'nase koyach ha'tachton ki im masha mislabish boy. Umamela ein ze atzmas koyach ha'elyon im ha'orah mimeno. V'koyach ha'tachton shemalim olov ein ze helem gomur. Because after all, there is a certain gilui of the koyach ha'elyon alidei the koyach ha'tachton. Just like in Seichel Umidas, there's a certain gilui of the Yin and the Seichel alidei the Midah. And the Midah is Megala what the Seichel, what's Va'oifen. But the Seichel it was. Because if it's a Zah-Midah, the Midah Sa'ah was a sign that the Seichel was a Seichel Shalava. B'chulu. Yemamela ein ze helem gomo. The Gamli Acha ha-helem meya ha'oras koyach ha'elyon. Ma shenkim behelem de chokhma, shemalim aratainug, einu boivin kozeh. Me'acha she'inyan ha'helem u she'atainug atzmei hu nase b'chinas chokhma, u bezeh hu misalem. Harei ha'kisui v'helem hu atzmi. The kisui v'helem is the thing itself. It's the very etzem itself. V'hainu shezehu atzmiyas atainug mamish v'nase b'chinas chokhma. U'bezeh misalim atainug ha'atzmi u'b'chinas helem gomo. So here we see a dvar pele. We'll soon be marked a little bit more about it. V'zehu inyan b'chinas ha'stimus the pnimius chokhmas timor. שסוסום ונעלם בעצם. וכמושן is בולי הוא פרק רייזיין, דבחינס פנימיוס חוכמס תימור, ובחינס מקיף דאור חויזר, שסוסום יהיה בעצם. We spoke about the inyan from Makif to Yosho, and then we spoke about the inyan from Makif to Choizer, and we said that the pnimius, the steamers, that in Chochmas Timur there are two oifanim, or two pirushim, that there's one inyan in Chochmas Timur that was only sosum min hamakablim, and then there's an inyan sosum bi-etem, and that inyan from sosum bi-etem is the steamers of what we call the makif do'er choizer. And we, like it's mavur in the Heshach Toshinu, the Bossi Legani, that the makif of oer choizer is never, it's not really shayat that it should ever come l'day, should ever come l'day golo. That's the aliyah v'istalkes of all the giluim b'teicha etzem mamis. And they're all misalim how they are in the, or not how they are, they're all misalim in the etzem, and so therefore their helem is managed with the helem of the etzem alay. And that's the inyan of machif the oyer choizer. Therefore, it's not what the mashpia gives anything. No, on the contrary, he withholds and withdraws from the makabel b'derech, meaning that it's those inyonim which are not shy to come from the mashpia to the makabel klal, or other, but they are misalim in his etem. If Amir asks us out to shaila, what is so-called sof? What does the makabel have from that? What ma zenaf communal like kilo ezinian yesh legabi the makabel. So it was much more there in Perek Veisayin that sof kol sof. There are certain times where on certain inyonim where that makif the choizer is al choponim nimtza or mishkale boyen not bepnimius or beatzmius al choponim betchila. When it is nimshach, it's nimshach even atzmi. It's poil on the makabel, also not in an even that he's mamish Masik ze klau. Das ist ein Parafim Beifen Makifi, Batschmi. And for a Dugmele from we saw was the Ayin from the Schacha the Sukkah. But the Schacha the Sukkah, this is from the Tshuva of Yom Kippurim. And we saw that was the Ayin and Dugma from the Ayin from Oil. We saw here also that the Ayin from Tshuva, Amitias, of Yom Kippurim is a Dugma from the Ayin from Oil Choyzer. And yet nonetheless we say that the Makifim of the Sukkah are from the Ketairos that was that the Kohen was Machnis for Tei Kodesh HaKadoshim. From that Anana Ketairos in the Kodesh HaKadoshim Mamish, then we had Nimshach the Schacha Sukkah Kiyadu Mafusam, the famous Hemshach at the Vakocha from the Rebbe Marash was Mavayad at the Sukkah, the Schacha the Sukkah is the Anana Ketairos from the Ketairos which was brought into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippurim. And Amir Zetman of the Schach is after all Miskale, of it's Miskale Beiven, but it's Lamayla Mi'odom, and nicht Miskale, and even Pnimi Va'atzmi. However, we see that on the Simchas Torah, and Shmini Atzeres, and Torah, or even that Schach becomes a Pnimi. So we see that so it is Nimshach into the Makabbalah, but then it's Nimshach, and as our way that the Kabbalah from them is Davke with the Guf, Hagashmi and Davke, but even Atzmi, not even from Korea, or for understanding, or for Hasoge, for Havna, for Kaita, but this is the Amshachas Ayeta. And the fact, it's one on Shmini Atzeres, is what we call the Leidas HaNeshamas. The Etzem Neshamas themselves become born. Well, that's a Ayin from Ayin and Atzmi, pink as if the Ben is me Atzm Sa Mamish. Amen. We're going to see a Dugma from them as we go along.
I heard that when you bench Lulav in the Sukkah, they bring down...
Yeah, but that's only Lafi, that's only a Hauram Mehem. Over the Etzem, Pnimis for Atzmis, that is Schach, but that only becomes Nimshach on Simchas Torah. You follow? On the contrary, it's much more that the whole Amshocha, the Lulav is like Achona. But that's bringing down the Makifim boys, how do you call it, the Oifani of the Makifim, the Rashai to be Mamshich, all the Avedas Odom, and not what to say, even Kil Milmaila Mamish, as I'm in Matona, Simchas Torah. And das nimmt man auf. Man nimmt auf die ganze Linie durch a Sturm in Pashtas, in Gashmis Oil und Kipschutter. Aber mir sagt man von dem, the Stimus Amitis of Chokmas Timor is not really shy that it should be Nimsha. But this is Kilo Matona, or as I mean, how do you call it, a Simon of Ava Atzmis, Mitzad the Mashpia, that not as he gives it, but Mitzad Seder, Inyonim, I feel Ali de Aveda, it's not really shy that it should be Nimsha. We're going to see a Dugma, wie Ayin ze now from the ganze Emshek in this period. Auch upon him, so we see from that the emes of bio in the Lashon Chokmas Timor is the inner from the Machif the Oil Choyzer. In Pamela, the Pnimis Abba, who Pnimis Atik, is really Ayin Shel Ha'atzmas. Now he is moved to Legamri, and the Tain of Ha'atzmi is only Kolo B'Teich Ha'atzmi. It's not really Nitan Le. Lagolu, and those are the Pshat Chokmas Timor. And so we see, that's why we saw here that in the earlier chapter, that the only way to really Kaviochel, be mamshik and form a shayches with those inyonim is through Kabbalah Seil. And Kabbalah Seil is dealing where the Adam is not by Zir. He just gave himself away completely. Ain't call Inyan V'Zerak. Net wie das ist Rotzen Haboirei. And in that itself, it's also an Asina Atmi, because everybody to do something needs a little bit of what you might call motivation, as they call it. Stuff at home was so, as they to use the expression, stuppen de Wogen, it should push things along. But it's just purely mitzakah. So we have to say that there's some koyach in the Adam, but that's kilo or any from Makiv to the Kabbalah says, it goes back, Beliko, Akbola Klau, Beliko, Yedir, be asked me what he's really doing. Ja, und Simchas Torah, ich sage, was betut Simchas Torah? All we know is it's got to dance, and having a Kaffeemaschke and dancing, you know what I mean? That's the way of it. Yeah, von Simchas Torah. Is the famous story was Rebbe came into the Friedrich Rebbe once. When was I? Shana Rabbi came into the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe was writing something. So the Rebbe said, B'mei Siktin, what's the in it? And the Rebbe said he's preparing the minor for Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah. He's preparing a minor. So the Rebbe looked at him. He said, Simchas Torah lernen? The Rebbe looked at Friedrich Rebbe and he said, Simchas Torah lernen? So Friedrich Rebbe just sort of thought for a moment, and then the Friedrich Rebbe said, he said, oh, ich darf tun mine. He said, well, I have to do mine. I have to give out of mine. He said, was it the time? He said, ich darf tun mine. It's a very amazing story. So from that we see that there are certain Eifanim where they bekommt in them steamers. So there's a steamer, how Chochma steamer is Sosom Legabi Chochma Iloa, and Legabi the Ine von Atzilas Beklau. So that's the Ine von steamers, mehr Mekablim, au Efshor Ilo Holiday Gilui. And it does take a Kamli Day Gilui Masuya. Steamers, die Etzem, Chochma steamer, beter, das ist die Ine von Machiv Torah Choiza, mitzad Atzmei Eno Shaykh. גילוי בזה. מצד עצם התנועה של העניונים אין שייך בזה גילוי. If there's any גילוי, das ist כאילו als מצד הכוח העצמי himself. מצד עצמי אין סוף himself. זה משמע when raise on. But anything that really comes out of that is really מצד. If there is a גילוי, das ist die עצמי himself does that. לפי זה kommt es, that we've got a absolute peddler-dicke Indian here, which in Emerson certain ideas have occurred to me about it, but maybe at another time I could maybe say something more about it. I guess there's a few lashonas that I need to sort of, absorb the whole message before I say what I'd want to say. Al Chaponim, we see etzem is milim of itself by looking to be something else, or that something else is really itself. You know, I mean, it's on the one hand, doesn't the Atzmi itself is hidden on itself? Yeah. And yet, on the other hand, that thing which looks to be a hiding is really the Etzem. But, if the Etzem is doing that, then it can be a Helam that you can't sort it out. It can be, because since it's coming from the Etzem himself, and he's hidden himself by becoming that, not by being mislavish in that, not by becoming that, then, to a certain extent, it's got the Helam of the Etzem. Even though he's gone down through that, and he's come nearer to you, but to a certain extent, he's still remaining completely Nelam, Kamoshu Hubiatzmusay. It's like a dover, even, how would we say, Mavil, it's not just a dover view, but it's killed the Etzem, plays on two fronts. Over both of them are the Etzem. That's what he said over there in those chapters. Pnimius Abba, who Pnimius Atik, he said the Emes of Pshat was Chochmas Timor. In other words, that in Chochmas Timor, they got the inner from Pnimius Abba, and this is Mamish Pnimius Atik. Or this is Abba, and this is Atik. Or we said the Pshat that we're learning now is that Emes, they are really one and the same thing. And that, what it looks to be Chochmah, is really how the Etzem is hidden himself inside an Olavush. He's made himself look like that. Over in Emerson, that's really him. It's over the Mekabim that are coming from Atzilas, they're not in that Etzem. They look at that and they don't really, just like they don't really know the Primus and the Mahusa, the Etzem. So they don't know what really that is either. And that's what we see in our film Moshe Rabbeinu. Well, in Yonah was Chochmah. In Yonah was Mamish Chochmah. When the Eivishter, when he asked the Eivishter, Rabbi Akiva, he saw Rabbi Akiva's stalkers. He said, "Zu Torah v'zu schora." The Gemara in the Masechta Menachos. And so the Rebbe said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Shtoik, kach ol b'machshava lefonai." Shtoik kach ol b'machshava lefonai. So for Taran Siddur said, "Mitzad echad, shtoik sounds almost like a breathe. Just keep quiet, But he's moisef, kach ol b'machshava lefonai. Lefonai, that takes my atzmis, my pnim, yes. And yet the expression is ola b'machshova. Machshova indicates some sort of an inyan which is shot to chokma. If you say machshova, then epis ito something that's already shot to call it chokma. And yet nonetheless, shtoik. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to just accept that. He didn't really get, any Tosefes Pure. They were just saying shtoik. Kachol machshova. Remember Zepman, it's Poter and Silla, das ist die Inne von Chokmas Timor. Das ist die Mitis Inne von Chokmas Timor. Und mit Tzad Echad, Moshe Rabbeinu, wo Liz in Yonah is Chokma, Gruya, he can't get that far. He can't, mit Tzad Koyach HaChokma, he's not Masi. Yeah, Afil Nakuda, and he says, Zu Teure v'Zu, Schora Akushia. Yeah, Akushia. And the Eivish doesn't answer him, but Terra, the Eivish says to him, Shtoik. That the emes of Veda in Ayin is only to keep quiet. As he was stated by Aaron, Vayidoy Maran. Aaron just went quiet. He didn't react. Vayidoy Maran. So the emes says to him, Shtoik. And yet nonetheless, he's moistened those words, Kach Ola b'machshova lefonai. It's a symbol that there is a inyan for machshova. Machshova here means chokma. But in that gufa, Ola b'machshova. This is an aliyah in the inyan for machshova in azam in darge, but this is sosum be'etzer. We're playing kill on both fronts. Why do we say shtoik? Because that's the same etzem. Well, the same etzem that says, shtoik, he says kachol b'machshova. It's both things are true. And that's the inyan from Chochmas Timor. The same inyan in Aveda, that's what we saw here. That was limud atera b'kabol tzeh. Kabol tzeh is a shtoik. Nobody's asking you to sit down and horev, to learn, be complete hefkeros atzmach. Nobody's asking you anything. Nobody says you have to be a landowner or find a yid. You just have to give yourself away to the Zakka Moshe Hu. We see here then a pillar that the etzem, what this is, the etzem, what this is tainu. And tainu is allemal the aliyah in the etzem, but it's always connected with a certain, can't run away from the word gishmak in tainu. The tainu always must, the word can't change its own pshat. The word tainu means a gishmak, a tufta. We have to say that in that whole inyan, where shtoik kachol b'machshova lefonai, the whole oifen hagisha is there, hidden in that is kilo atainu, a kilo, how can we say, vergnügen bei der Ewigkeit, a hidden atzmis helmdicke tainu. And man sagt that the Rebbe said, weißt doch der Meister. Wir verstehen nicht unser Rebbe. The Rebbe, if you trace the Rebbe's history, you see that he said things that none of the other Rebbeim ever actually said it quite that way. And the Rebbe said that we are permitted to say to the Eivishter, you've had enough of that time. He's soon going to say in the next chapter that that's a Kaviyochel, a Rosadinium from the Golas. That's what's going to come in the next chapter. And that Dinium from Stoig and the whole Dinium, the Dinium got a matter and sich in the Golas. And Dafki dem is the Ava Atschmis, and this is the Tainug Atschmis, the Akum Nochon, Emes Lamite. Aber wie bald das ist Sosum, der Vater Golas ist a Stimme. We versteht that the Golas. Peter said with Moshe Rabbeinu, he said he can't take that. And Peter said in Mitzrayim, Moshe Rabbeinu the same thing. It's the same Moshe Rabbeinu. Lama hora Esa la'omase. I'm the leader of the Jewish people. I'm der Moshe Rabbeinu. Ich verstehe. Ich hab das nicht. That's what he said to the Eberster. Maybe should do. Jehovah's never asked any questions. How come you ask questions? Moshe Rabbeinu got it over his head. Yeah, although we see it weiter, the Gemara tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go down. As they call it, Arop legamri is Moshe Rabbeinu nicht. Those are weiter. Is a simon that the Seppes Ayin da, or the Eibisches Tainu, is nicht verstandig bei uns. Ja, and we have to just be makabel. And it's hidden in that Ahava, all this Tainu, is hidden a gewaltige Ahava. And the Rebbe is the only one. The Rebbe said we have the right to say to the Eibishter. Yeah, we have the right to say to the Eibishter, we feel, Moshe Rabbeinu all over again, we feel that you've had enough of that time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you had that time, when the Golas, and all those inyanim occurred, you know. You remember the Rebbe Tiskizot, he said we have the right to say to the Eibishter. And if we're going to see a man take a beer now on the whole Ine van this Ava Atmis and Steiner Atmis, it's hidden inside the whole Ine, and there's a steamers. And forget that steamers is what causes the go, because on the outside you can't really figure what's going on. Yeah. Even though it's hot, it's got a beer, but the Evish is not a beer. Or Moshe Rabbeinu said, versteht. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I'm the leader and I'm the one who carries the Jewish people on my shoulder. I mean, I don't know as he could do it. And he said, I'm not asking you any questions, my son. Yeah. I'm not looking for any truths in Fadir. They came along the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, I must say. And about that lady that never she passed away, you know, the one by the Goy, the whole thing. So, you know, it's come to a mind, I mean, the matter is mind. It's mahal, that's what they mean. We have to take the Rebbe's koyah. We have to take on ourselves in a good neiven, in a kosher neiven, in a chassidish neiven. We have to take and some punishment. I mean, take this present government. You ever heard in Yiddish what stupen der Zeit? You ever heard of the expression stupen der Zeit? You don't know what to do and you don't know what anything, you just push the time, you just stup. Nog een woord, nog 2 woorden, nog you don't have any way out, you don't know what to do, what to say, you just push the time. Pink to this. For the ganze Meise mit der Medina, mit der Memshala, mit der ganze, die stupen der Zeit. Think carefully about it. They don't have any idea what they're doing. They don't know what the hell it's going to be. They haven't got the faintest idea who they are or what they are. Yeah? And it's stuck in the time. There's a sound, there is a there, and there is a boydom. Stuck. You know, comes again. A poem is sugar names. That's everyone. Was touched in the tide. Here we're going to meet up with the beer, how it is, mitzad the Eibishter. And even maybe a little bit mitzad the Mekabler. Oh, this is like the unbelievable summing up of the matter, how it was at the Liachri Tofresh Pei and maybe into the pays and then obviously kommen Ocean Yud and so on. Unsere steht doch eine whole scene. So here we're going to get the most unbelievable beer, but you know, we have to realize tough is the dvorim amukim ad ein shir ad ein tachlis. So you have to be select. I was a little bit married. because we got good chatton over it, we have to sort of appreciate in what whole a room, this whole thing is building itself. Anyway, so, and Amir Tashem, and this whole idea of what the Friedrich Etzem kind of becomes another thing. So, ich habe es sehr ärgerlich bisher. Wir bauen das steht in Ayin Beis, und das ist der Rabbinisch Masseiden. Das ist moeilijk Unionen. Das ist nicht da. What I just said now was like an out of room to Hezbollah. Let's try and see a little bit further where we're going here. So says the Rebbe, that, yes, you saw some be'etzem, the locher ain't more, wait a minute, you begin to tell him, gomo, it's Helem gomo. So we begin to say, steamers, the pnimis chokmas timor, she saw some venelam be'etzem. Since he makes it, and he's the one who's making the whole thing, he himself is the thing. Not that there's a lavusha which is malim on him. Amamira, that's a Helem gomo, because people to say you can't know anything about him, you don't know anything about this piece either. As a man that you let it down closer to you, that in a certain way you can get to that, but you're not really getting, you don't know what you're getting at. Commissioners Bolio, per Rezain, the Pnimis Chokmas Timor, who begins Maki to Erchoiza, Shesosum Be'etem. That's a meatius in a steamer. That's what he was Mavir over there. The Locher ain't a moving. Meachish so Masha Mailim or Machasa Obchinas Atik. Ukipshitas lost another Commissioners Bolio, per Machase, because there was Kisuya Ulavusha, then the Atika. Is from the pashtas of the Rosh Hashanah mashma that it is a dova hamachase, like there is kilo a kli hamachase. He said, "Eichu b'chinas sosum be'etem me'achas zehu rak k'moi lavush hamaylim." Since it's only lavush hamaylim, how can you say it's sosum be'etem? Because every lavush hamaylim lets something through. Everything in a lavush hamaylim, the koyach alien to a certain extent expresses itself through the lavush. So magnet of the lavush is mailim and what you might call mamayat, even of the intensity of the giloi. Over here comes a sosum be'etzem, means you don't know anything, absolutely nothing. Steak, just be quiet. Everything. What is it? So therefore he said, "Eichu b'chinas sosum be'etzem, I should make a relisha mailim. Ve'al pianal nicha." Even though those uses the expression kisuya ulavusha, it's not kisuya ulavush, no, it's a kilo, like somebody said here in the last year, lavushi maneu bay. It's the lavush is him himself. Ki'im shezeu ha'elema atzmi, v'hainu shezeu atzmi is atik mamish shenaso b'chinas chokmas timor, u'bezeh dafke hu me. Misalem, yeah. In other words, he's misalem inside his own soul. And the reason why he doesn't bring levushi maneu bay, because levushi maneu bay, it attaches that the levush covers him, and you don't really. And those attach not that he covers by inside something. He himself just becomes a different thing. In order to get closer to you, but nonetheless you don't really get closer to him. He lets himself down towards you. But the only way you can get to him is becoming a completely oyster zich. And then you don't really get to know what it is, but you can somehow or another be there. It's an amazing idea. Ki'im shezeu ha'elem atzmi, hainu shezeu atzmi es atik mamish, ובזה דווקא הוא מסעלם. הרי בכינס חוכמס תימוה היא כמוי עתיק ממש. בכינס הסתימה שסוסם בעצם. Just like עתיק is sosum be'etem, so it's also sosum be'etem. It's a manir that it came down in a way that it can be the beginning of a mamutza. Soft, some way you can come back from Lamata Umag and you'll meet up with it. והנה מבחינת הסתימה הזוהיס נמשך כוח ההסתר. He said, דווקא from that steamers is nimshach hester, not a goloi, not a giloi. In other words, where is a koyach a kli hamalim, and there's a dova a lavush hamalim, so that something's nimshach. Yeah, it can even be nimshach but a giloi, just that there's a certain hester after giloi. Obviously, Vibal, that's him himself. Pnimis Abahu, Pnimis Atik, that's him. And there's a Pnimis Atik. Pink, there's a Pnimis Atik is Sosum, Be'etzim Hagdora. So the same with this Indian that comes about. This Chokmas Timur is also Sosum Baduk Boivenko, Sosum Boivenko there. But I said, the Rebbe Kumte said, that's an Indian, the Davke from that, Chokmas Timur, Davke from that, you read a Klapei, the Makablim, there's Nipshik Lahem, Ayin from Astora. And only when they somehow or another get through that Astora, then they can form the Kesh. Then they can reach it. And you've got to get through that Astora. So how do you do that? I'm not quite sure at the moment, but let's see what he has to say, the Rebbe. Al derech ve'oi havei shoicharei musar. All of a sudden, Shalom Aleichem. That somebody who loves somebody, then he, how do you call it? He reprimands him with musar. Shemashtiru mailim ho'ava ha'atzuma b'chinas haben yakir Ephraim. He said that he's got a tremendous ava, like the Eibusher has for Yidden. Tomorrow stated in the Pasuk, haben yakir Ephraim. Even Ephraim, that he was not such a good son. They were they were the tribes that drifted away. They weren't so good. Ephraim. Nonetheless, Ben Yakil Ephraim, the Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes. In other words, the direct effect na'ava achmi is that Mayim Rabim, doesn't matter what their toichef might be, what the koyach of those Mayim Rabim is, they couldn't possibly be mechaber, they couldn't wipe out as amitzot. Ava, uksiv ki azo kemovis Av. The Av is Azo Kemovis. In other words, it does speak to Savior as a Av, that nothing can stop it. Azo Kemovis Av. The beginning are Hafti Eschem Oma Havai. So was it a touch? Azo Kemovis Hava. I mean, Movis is the Eipel from all the Inyonim. Movis is the Eipel Chachayim. What a touch Azo Kemovis Hava. We'll soon see in a second. We'll see from the Oifen Abir that we'll be able to maybe touch that posik. A bit more Betuf Tam. I don't know about Betuf Tam. To begin to say, Avti Eschem Oma Havai. In other words, that the Ava is a Ava mitzad the etzem shalamayla. And therefore nothing can possibly stop it. Even in Yonim from Torah mitzvahs not being kediboya with the whole thing, nothing can stop or be in any way mechaber or machlish for that Av. Being close here, and nonetheless, machase o Av legamrei, bekoyach chokhmose yizborach, o mare ha'ifach. Now here we see the kesher with Chochmah. He said, in Kozer, the Eibusher hides that Ava completely. But Goro, you don't see that Ava at all. Even though it's Ava Achmis, that nothing could possibly in any way quench it. But Koyach Chochmose, in other words, that there's a plan. How do you call it? Shtei kach olav v'machshova. In other words, that is pnimius, a chokhmah from the Eibusher. U'mareh ha'hepach, or he shows to the Makabel, he's there. But Golui to the Makabel, it appears exactly the opposite. Visitors, the tachlis hakavona bezeh, hu bitei latakein ulaheiti validezeh, bahatova yeseira. The whole tachlis of that looking opposite is in order to be matakin the makabo and to give him benefit and goodness, b'hatovi yesera, with an unusually powerful hatova, an unusually great and how do you call it, additional benefit. Ukiyadua the pnimis ha'ava mizgala b'ha'efer davke, and as well known that the pnimis ha'ava is mizgala davke b'ha'efer. So here we're going to see a dike Indians get for. It's a beer we're familiar with. It's written as a beer in Kamakamas verses. Over here we're talking about as a oimik in that Indian, which is not just that sometimes it's mavua gvura shebechesed, what they called, gvura shebechesed. But sometimes, in order to carry out the chesed, he has to, be mishnayig in b'noy begvura. I will see that can be an azar who was loved up away from concept. But during the taich that the etzem ava itself, mitzad the chochma shebazeh, mitzad the pnimis verstand which is in them, he actually does mamish eipach of what ava implies. Golui, he doesn't print the heipach. So the makabo can say, what's going on around here? But in Emerson, it doesn't mean the great take of Av. And so now he gives a dogma. Okay, you do the pnimis Ava mizgala b'ha'efer davke. Davke when something the opposite of the Ava occurs, then you see the ultimate azas and pnimis of the Ava. Kumayal der moshu ha'av oyeves b'noi mitzad teva. Now here's very interesting. We're not talking about, all sorts of thought out avas and avas that he's thought about, and he said, this is my son, and I got this ava from that ava. The ava tivias that a father has to his son. Mamish the tivias. Mitzara teva. Shuhu ava, shuhu achmis the avazu. He said, that's the achmis of the ava of a father to his son. Yesh noi belibay betmidias. Rakshu be'elam. And that's the thing which never changes. Or that ava towards his ben, zelo mishtaneh, lo tov ma'ashiyeh. And what was in the time? Or that inner ava's tivias that he has for a ben, or that will never change. Sometimes he might say he writes off his son and continue. Everyone's come to Tom and tell him, he writes him off and he does it, makes out he doesn't know him, and the other inyanim, the other zachen. But we said that's all giluim. Or mitzad the teva, atzmi is inside. On the contrary, it could be he's going out mamish ba'ava even more mitzad those inyanim. In other words, that's a inyan which is always there between years. And why is it an inyan TV? Because the inyan, which is a TV, it eventually never works on that. That's just a inyan from mitzad the etcher. It doesn't the atzmi. And mamira doesn't believe boy even to medias. V'kasher aben noifol la'ored. We're talking about a ben koton. Or he mishtane for kadima, he falls down on the ground, or he gets all dirty. As I yirgaz v'yichas olov or ma'i, the father will get tremendously angry with him. And say, give a cook with this guitar, just that, you hit yourself and just get klapzak, and you got yourself all filthy and all messy and he'll fly into a tremendous chaos. Ma'i, alasher hushpal v'nimos kokach, umiyasre oiselze, and he'll give him a clap, he'll give him Yisurim. Kol zeh usha ava hechricha oiselze. The Ava forced him to that. It's not that he had to sit down and work out what's he going to do now. No, the Ava to machriach given. Ki im loy hoya oyeve loy ichpes loy klal ma shenishpal kamo shloy yichleisel ben chaver. If so happened to another Yiddish kind, so he'd be upset. Go and help the child. Or just don't train up the kind and tummel auf him and schreien auf him. A kind gefallen. Raped the kid, try to help him. Put him, find out where his mother is, give him back to his mother, his father. Or sein Kind gefallen auf der Rand, fliegt rein and Breugers and the cars, what's this so geschmutzig, what have you done here, what's it? Yeah. So the Rebbe said, does a heap of haver, what's he getting all to cocked and all breakers about? So he says that if it would have happened to Ben Chaveri, it wouldn't have been ikpesloi, not that I slow ikpesloi, he wouldn't do anything about it, but it wouldn't be ikpesloi, boifim kozeh. Rak mitzad oitze mahavose elov hu misrageis, mipnei she'nogea hadover leliboy. Ja, Frau sieht es, that he gets off kebreges auf dem Kind. But that's because the kid is nogea mamish leliboy. Pnimius ha'ava mamish. Das ist nogea lebeteva. Das ist etzem tiboy. And if I when it's his kind, and I've heard him say, yeah, they call it mushbar, and I've heard of him in cars. Once I was in a shul in Tzfas, and I heard of a father told me this. But his kinder tough him, schrien. He didn't do something good or something. So he what's he doing? Mami's made an effect on me. Mami's only schrien auf him, and die tumult and shit. I said, ich kann da Makubel, actually can. And later when I wrote this in, it says, I look back over the end, I thought, oh, it's verstehen. That's because, yeah, he was I mentioned Beis, a spontaneous person. Remember, the TVs just came out, and he just can't take it. He can't see vertraut. Well, this is Ayin Ben, and he's mukusher to him. Yeah, mit der Ava Achmies, and Mamer, wie kommen das nicht her? Nimmt er auf his hair. Als nicht der Zeit, at the Schreien and the cars, is a lavush. No, the cast does go for ideal. The whole cast, the whole regel, but that's because of the Ava and it's a way of expressing it. And because the Ava is a tivius, and the father also comes in even tivi, yeah, mitzad the etzem, nicht mitzad alavut. And the father doesn't make any sense. A straight of him, tumult of him. So the more cultural person standing and saying, well, what's first to say cars and Maruis, take it easy, Darf ich das mit the Ava Achmir? Come on, you have to take it easy. Yeah, they say that probably there's a proportion behold over. Aber, says the Rebbe, ja, das ist mit wo das mamish nogea leliboy. וכל שהבן יוקר יויסה יגיע ליboy. Was mehr, the yoke von der Sohn, is als mehr that'll touch into his heart. הרי, הגם שחיצוניוס הוא גבולה ורגש, הנה בזה דווקא הוא פנימיוס הוא איזה האב. Now I understand what he said earlier. Yeah, as a kamovis ava. Yeah, that is ava. This mamish eipacha toy. This eipacha begola. This kilo eipacha toy. Or because tutuchonin, as I mean Indian, or that gufa is the ava. It's not the pshat that he's looking for some sort of way of saying something or doing something. No, that's an instinctive thing in Matzad Teva. Pink as if the ava is the etzema teva. That's also the etzema ateva, and the etzema regas, or that's the expression of the ava itself. Not that he's put himself into some sort of a way of expressing himself. Dos gufa is the etzema. You בזה שהגבול אין כמו לבוש אל העם שבואים כזה הוא דווקא בהשפעה שמצד העם. In other words, he's going to say, wait a minute, it's mavur. And so there is such a Ayin where the father, thinks about a Kevin, he brings a Ayin from Gevula against the son. So the Rebbe said that is where Be'etzim, the whole Kavona, is that he really wants to give the son. And he's concerned with the Yamin Fashpa. He wants to give his son. He's got a whole Inifachino, he wants to approach his son. So you see sometimes that he's not really ready for that, or maybe the Ashpa is a little bit too much for him, or not so sometimes he has to go a bit sharp. You have to. Maybe he might even have to be Miyasar Gamke. You might have to give him a few pets occasionally to keep him, in the discipline which is necessary. Aber die Emesse Kavanah dort is a Shita von Ashpor, von Hatove, Taseda. In other words, you want to be mechanic him, you want to bring him up the right way, you want to make sure he'll go on the right way. That's all Ashpor. So this Ashpor. Really what's behind it, the whole Mahalach, is Hashpor. He's really giving this up. Certain inyanim make it difficult for the Makabel to be Makabel, and therefore he has to go sharp. And
that could be not dafka from a father to a ben.
Yeah, I mean that happens often, even in other forms of Hashpor. Nachon. Aber beike, in the normale Leben trifft es ein paar Fälle mit das an. In der Fall kommt that there is a Gvura Sheba Chesed. Und das ist doch Chesed, Shashpoa is Chesed, so. That's a Gvura Sheba Chesed. Here, when all of a sudden, it becomes, I can't go to I can't just, an eye to give him. He said, that's not a Shpoa. He's not trying to educate him, he's not trying to bring him up, he's not trying to do anything, Beis, you just can't take him. I couldn't. Why? Because this is Emmeline. That's his own etzem. A straight, mitzad the teike fa'ava, that itself becomes gvura. It becomes a inish gvura. Or it's on a cheshbon, on a gonis. And that's one becoming the other. I think when he, normally the idea of the cars, B'shas the chesed, the gvura shebechesed, well, that's where there's already a hashpor and a shita looking for the benefit of the son. And then you have to use certain shafer, that should come away from Suda. And this is another. So this kilo, it's mamish, what you might call, what's the expression, this goes from Zichalai, what's the expression? It's, I forget the English word. It just happens.
Spontaneous. Spontaneous.
It's just spontaneous. It's just the etzem itself giving itself out. Understand? So sometimes, you might see dvorim temuim, but you have to understand where it's really coming from. We have to be careful not to come along and say, there's a whole beer and says why it could be a Chaisfas to his son. Nicht das Adkrikach meint man nicht. Aber mir meint es, wenn all of a sudden der Fahrer geht der Geschrei, was hast du da getan? That's not Ashpor. No, this is the Etzem Avo is geworden. The Etzem Avo ist angetan. And not angetan. The Etzem Avo became geworden. That's what he says now. Aber שבאים כל זה, הוא דווקא בהשפוע שמצד האב. כמו האב שמצד האב עושה לו בנוי, הרי הוא משפיע לו. He wants to give him education, wants to give him Torah and sogim. צורך להעלים בזה האב והחסד, שלא יסגל ביועסר, כדי שתהיה השפוע לפי ערך הבן. If he just gives him all love, you're one over here, I am, and I'm educating men. It's gleislachen. Therefore, you have to give the education in a way of Gvuris B'toich Afsodim. And therefore, that's all in order, that's Sof Kol Sof, Shaben Yuchel Lekabel, he should be able to be Makabel, the Inyonim. And one of the Ike there is the Ashpor. The Gvura is Kidei Letakin the Ashpor, that it should be Mishkabel by the Makabel. Over here, it's got nothing to do with Kanishpor, it's got nothing to do with a Shitta, it's got nothing to do with anything. The Etzem just can't take it, the Etzem just goes out and becomes a Yinishal Gvura. He said, it could be that in the middle of a certain inyan that he's trying to get across to his son as a way in life and a whole inyan, how to bring him up and how that he should grow and he should benefit from his surroundings with the whole inyan, that sometimes you have to be malim the avo, and you have to sort of do it in a sharp way and in a more strict way. It's a lavush to the apple. This is Gvura Sheba Chesed. The lavush of Gvura is Kilu Niklal in the Chesed. Or be emes hagvura, and of his meteors. It's not really emes hagvura. Shari urach lahalim, b'tei years galas ha'ava, boivin to call its kavod. That's not really gvura, and that's what's mavura in those places. It's not really gvura, because sof kosov, the whole aim of that gvura is to give him what we really want for him, or what's really best for him. Or but over there, all of a sudden they're fleet in their cars, because the gefahren, that's got nothing to do with Tashpur. That's the Etzemah itself giving itself out in another language. And I mean, it's a politic in here. But the whole gvura over there is only in order to be lishkabel. We're giving him. Yeah, but Helem bezeh, Helem gomu. Yeah. Even if he's I forget. That's brought down that the father really wants the son to go away after a session with him and think, oh, I thought he was sharp today. He was and the son thinks to him, he says, yeah, but if I stay, really what's going on here? I understand my thought will. I said, well, the ben has to be soft, a filu oila ala ayin the viatme. And on the contrary, that's one of the shleimus of the Indian, that when he's teifet or masi, or the matorah of the gevura, then that's a shleimus by Ayin. But in this particular, we're talking about ein b'zeh kol how do you call it, kol ta'alich hazeh. V'helem b'zeh ein helem gomu, gam mimali ma'avosim mimeno, v'avi hi rak chitzein yisah. It's take ava, it's ava mushlemes, aber so it's not the etzum tibius of the ava. Maar schenken beregens anal. Haar is a gvura mamich, daar misrages and miskayes. He mamish gets furious. Shas meise, shehu bechas olav, he mamish gets angry. Ach is it sivas shas uava atzmiyah. Hareisha etzem mohusa shala gvura hi ava. Yeah, loishi hi rakla vush el ava ki etzem mohusa hu ava davke yeah ava atzmis mamis. That's good, Sapele. I was to admit I've never quite seen as I'm in gang. I've seen biurim amukim in that second fall. A lot of biurim amukim and other son and so vele opinion so in and versteht and dus there's a shleimus and a hin and a and now you have to know how to be miyasi your son if you really want to mechanic him and all sorts of that. But there was another beer. There was a touch at the etim av itself becomes raised. The mensch konish von him that becomes the etim kas itself. That is the av. And it's a spontaneous thing that comes between the tibias. And it's a good of some andere maße. That's a dogma von Atik becoming Chochman. Das was da reingeworfen. So, yeah. That's also mitzad a gewisser Chochman, aber not Chochman mit der Shitta. Und nicht mitzad, that's a kilo, I mean Chochman which is there, also in an instinctive way. And this kilo, as Ayin, which says to him, Sofka Sotas yours, and Harai, why isn't he flying to Casa Fjenum's kilo? This kilo, a message inside him, which clicked, how they say nowadays, they use the expression, Simon Nofel. Yeah. It's clicked inside him, and he says, wait a minute, das ist dein Kind. That's the same thing what Moshe Ben had to the Avish said, to find, ich weiß, was ich tue. I know what I'm doing, but it's a hard one. And Begolui,
But here in the Mashal, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Huh?
Here in the Mashal, he doesn't know what he's doing. The father he has no Kavana Khan.
No, ain't sure Kavana.
But thereby the Eibishter was saying, I mean, the Chorah by the Eibishter is not just say the Eibishter.
Yeah, there is a Kavana, and that's what the Rebbe said to Chokmosei. He said there's Yodva a Chokm in there. And that's like I said, that's one of the Inyonim what does happen by another person's son. Deep inside the door, noch Atzmi, is it was dying zone. And the same by the Rebbe, deep inside there is a Ayin in Bezeh. So bebkinas asoga or or Haskola or is Chatmas. Or it's called Chokmah because of lack of any other biur b'zeh. Or yesh b'zeh eizeshu inyan. And certainly Yosid, when Moshiach had come, but men said what was given the chesed. Or it will be a different sort of chesed than what we understand in Seichel. Or there'll be a sort of a reason behind it. Oh yeah, what is state is it? Ja, dat is een andere zaak. Dat is een beetje. Ja, enige naam. Dat is kilo. We zeiden de eeuwigste, oh, yeah, we thank you for what we didn't understand. You understand? Over here, we'll be oile a beetje of was het ook gewende chesed. There was a chesed. And those are the pshat, kach allemaal mag zeggen. There is a chesed. And I feel here by der mensen zegt toch a chesed. Dat is de pshat. Ja, maar שבא וציר הגבורה, אבל עצם מהוסה היא אהבה עצמיה. So that's the way the ought to finish it. I have to finish now because I've got to get going. It's, but do you understand what's going on here? It's mamisha. Oyem dike meise. En maar wel, meile rechtse, he pnimis abde, he pnimis atik. He becomes that, one becomes the other. It's not that one is a luvush to the other. And Mamere, she said, that's what the Rebbe is going to say about Mamere, that's a dogma for all the Holomas Vesterium in the Goddess. It's come to us that this Ava, Davki comes in the form of a kilo adoa muster, and it's Golo, you can say, what for Ava it is. That's what we're going to see in the coming chapter. So we tell the time, the Eivishter wants it before Pesach, we have to sort of hear these in Yonim, and then we have to go out from Alamadin's.
We'll see the Lava Makaba.
We get out of the whole thing. In other words, how do you say it's an unbelievable hezbollah, you know? And that's what I'm saying. That's what the Rebbe, that's the difference of the Rebbe. What the Rebbe. Anyway, so what it boils down to is a simple question. Next week, probably, nobody has any Koyah to learn next week.
Beis Hamikdash.
Oh. The Koyah. So in that case, we'll leave it. We won't talk about it. And we'll talk with Shmuel in the final three. We'll see. Come and think about it. We'll see what's going on. Well, probably that's also, you know, all the wife saying this is going to be the answer Horavani, that's probably also Avat. It comes in the form of a guru.
Does that work with wives and husbands? Sometimes the wife loves the husband and it turns into Gvura.
As I don't understand. Yeah. Yeah. But the kesher between a wife and a husband is darts, but Emes is a bris. Called bris hanasuyan. Bris says, bris that. Eino ishu koreses bris. Saying from bris. You know, it's a bris is like a bris is a kesher as I mean. Sometimes deep inside this mind the kesher. You know. I was a Beis Nissan. Once had a mice on the Rebbe, from the Rebbe Randa told me a story once that once after they went to Rostov, that they were supposed to go, about finding out about a new, they're only in a temporary, the deal they now have, and that was where the Rebbe eventually went. And so they had to go looking for some place, they had to go look at an apartment to see if this was the right one. They were supposed to take some action about the deal. And so the Blanda was there when the Robertson came in. She said to the Rebbe, "No, are you ready? You know, we've got to go. With some omit." She said, "Great." So he says, "No." She said, "We have to go. You know, we're tough to my gate." And he says, "It's not okay. We've got to find out about the deal." You know. So the Rebbe said, "Nicht yet. Can't be now. It's not child." So she said, we spoke about it, it's aufgehört, and we go to the Mechler, or to the Tavech, or whoever it is, we're going to go in time, we have to go, it's aufgehört. And there was couldn't go. So I can't go, not going. So she said, what's it? So she got, upset. Rabbi said, "Los mitru, don't nudge it, los mitru, can't shit." So she went away very upset. So Rav Landa was there with the Rebbe, and he said that he couldn't hold himself back. So he said to the Rebbe, I said, she meant good. She meant good, So, you're a bit hard on me. It's coming old. He said to the Rebbe, she meant good. And so the Rebbe said, ich weiß. The Rebbe said, ich weiß. That she meant good. Es ist gut. Aber ich bin nicht scheich zu dem und dem Rega. Ich kann nicht. Ich bin im Ganzen nicht in dem. He said, I can't do it, I'm not in it. That's how I heard it on myself. I heard it for a long time.
So you can be like that all the time?
Huh?
You can be like that all the time?
I don't know, me or that. I mean, you got to do it a person. I mean, the Yid that gave you these, as a borrow that he wasn't. He wasn't in things like we are, man. I mean, they're moving, but tells you how he was, because that we'll never know even after Mashiach comes. What was he? Yeah, this was the Mashiach. What we're not, that was basically good. So we have to realize that this is our abilities. We can't overuse your powers. Good. Okay, guys, so listen. Like Ben said, our aim is the Beis on Yiddish. We can't take any more of this.
You're not Nissan.
Has to be the Beis. Take me out, mamish. Good, guys.
Camel.
Take me out, mamish. So I've got a whole mahar. I didn't say it. I was thinking shows about this whole piece. And I sort of came up with an idea, but I'm going to have to work on it. So maybe you replace it, I might be able to come out with it. So I think we'll just mute him up, and he'll come and get it. I'm sure he'll come.
What about this?